Flight and Shield Block.
And he decides not to throw out the Acolyte there as well for Karjan. Just really wants to get a body on the board to match whatever's going to be thrown out next turn from the Rogue. Basically stop that momentum.
There's a possibility for Shield Maiden here. Yeah, just putting more stuff on the board. I like that kind of play.
Yeah.
The other possibility was Acolytic Pain plus Cruel Taskmaster. But I feel like this was pretty good because, yeah, like you said, just putting more stuff on the board. This seems to be a really good play, though. This is exactly how Rogue wins this matchup. It's by putting minions on the board and making sure Warrior can't deal with those minions.
It's one of the only ways you can win, too. Because sometimes if the Warrior has control of the board, sometimes it can feel impossible to come back in the game as the Rogue. Because you're spending your whole turn trying to clear what they have instead of building up your own board. And then eventually you'll just run out of damage. Because if you're throwing damage into all his stuff, you won't have damage to be able to use on his face.
Wow, what an amazing draw. Shield Block into drawing Shield Slam. This is exactly what Amaz would have hoped for. And we can see another reason why Amaz saved the Cruel Taskmaster was to use it for cleanup duty in combination with the Execute. So pretty much all the sprint.
What a top deck.
What a top deck indeed. Wow.
If sprints are like your last 5 or 10 cards in a Rogue, if you're playing Warrior, it feels like you just don't have any chance to win.
Yeah, exactly. You just basically need cards in this matchup. There's no way you can trade 1-for-1 against the Warrior because Warrior cards are so efficient, especially their weapons. So you kind of have to go all in here.
Yeah.
Take a lot of risks, and that's why we can kind of see Dog just oiling or poisoning up and just not playing around Harrison Jones because, yeah, you do have to take these risks in order to win.
I feel like both these players are just staring into my soul right now. So stoic. So majestic.
Well, especially Amaz because you are a Control Warrior player at heart, after all.
I am. It's like he's basically looking at me and telling me, this one's for you, TJ. Thank you. Thank you, Amaz. And Dog is thinking, I've made a huge mistake bringing Rogue. Or picking Rogue first against the Control Warrior. That's the I've made a huge mistake face.
You know, I've seen a lot of more casual players on Reddit saying, hey, why is Rogue, Oil Rogue good these days? Like, because you do have Zoo, you do have Face Hunter. Wow. Wow, what a man, Dog.
10 damage to the dome to get rid of that. But I guess, I mean, that's sort of the main win condition. And if you're forced to have to use spells to take that off, like what would he have had to do there? You would have to use the battle cry from the SI agent plus an eviscerate.
That's true.
You can't afford to throw that much damage into the Grom because you need that damage to get through this Warrior who's still at 30 health. You know, he hasn't been through second Shield Maiden. He's okay to armor up every turn.
Yeah. Yeah, also, like, because you've seen Grom being used, you know that the Warrior actually, he doesn't have any more burst plays. Yeah. So you're actually feeling pretty safe at 16 HP. The most that the Warrior can do, really, in a single turn is if they equipped Fiery War Axe and then Rag and Roast you in the face. Which is, I mean, always a possibility. That being said, like, Control Warriors, some of them have been cutting Rag lately in favor of cards like Ysera or even more Gorehowls.
Yeah. I feel like Rag is still a pretty good pick, though. It is really good against Oil Rogue, a deck that you're already pretty good against. It's also good against Freeze Mage.
Yeah.
Not that you need more help against Freeze Mage if you're playing Control Warrior.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I think, like, the thing is Rag is being put into a lot of other decks, like mid-range Druid, but it's kind of being taken out of Warrior because the two matchups that it helps with a lot are Freeze Mage and Rogue. And again, like you said, those are the matchups that Warrior doesn't really need help against.
Yeah. They're adding cards that shore up their bad matchups instead, while the other decks are just trying to catch up to Control Warrior. As we both know and we'll both agree on, is the best deck in the game currently and forever.
I don't know if I agree with you on that, but
now and forever.
It's certainly doing a lot of work here.
He actually has a lot of burst in his hand. Hasn't drawn into the Blade Flare yet, but he is going to put some decent damage on here to try and just chip through that armor. Holds onto the weapon just because he has Deadly Poison Tinkers in his hand already.
Brawl could be good here. I don't think you're ever going to get another good Brawl here. but this is kind of slightly more consistent, and it kind of curves out a little better. With this line of play, though, Amaz is saying, okay, this Brawl is pretty much a dead card in my hand. I'm probably never going to use it.
Yeah.
And just as I say that, he Dog draws the second Violet Teacher, of course.
Yeah, Violet Teacher is one of the only ways that Brawl would get any sort of real value, would be any sort of real type of removal.
Now, exactly like you said, the Violet Teacher is almost being a detriment here. He actually couldn't use the effect of Violet Teacher and just goes for as much damage as possible.
Yeah. A 9 damage dagger, though. You could put him at 7 health right now. It would basically mean, though, he's sort of either forcing the warrior to not have any type of removal or trying to top deck Blade Flurry or sprint into Blade Flurry the next turn.
Now, Dog actually knows that Amaz has at least one Sludge Belcher in his hand, and he probably can get through that, but 2 Sludge Belchers might be more of a problem.
Yeah. Alright, so it appears as though he's going to have to... this is tough. He can take the 6 damage from the Earthring Farseer. It's sort of really scary to just sort of leave it there. Another option would be just to play double Sludge Belcher.
But that leaves you open to a top deck Blade Flurry, and you haven't seen a single Blade Flurry from your opponent.
Yeah. But the thing is, this turn, there's actually no way that he can get around not dying from a top deck Blade Flurry. Because either way, even if he armors up this turn, which that would be the only way he could gain health, there's a 9 damage dagger, he'd be at 9 effective health. Blade Flurry kills him regardless. So double Sludge Belcher might be the play here. And if he's going to play double Sludge Belcher, then leaving the Earthring Farseer alone and killing off the Violet Teacher.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
Goes face.
Wow, I did not expect him to go face here, though.
Well, this forces him to top deck.
Oh!
Poor Amaz. But I mean, this is one of the ways that you win against Warrior, is basically just saying, you know what, YOLO, equip all my weapon buffs and then hope for a Blade.
This Priest, it generally runs 1 Mind Control as well. So with 2 Light Bombs, 2 Shadow Word Deaths, and a Mind Control, there's just so many answers for all of the possible threats that the Warrior can put out.
Yeah. At the same time, though, Warrior also has a way to deal with a lot of the shenanigans that this type of Priest can put out. It has an easy way to deal with the Velen's chosen targets, especially Death Lord. Can sometimes be a liability to play just because sometimes you don't want a Warrior to have a creature like that unless you have a way to deal with it. Because what if it pulls out something big?
Yeah, usually I feel like in this matchup you're so afraid of Execute that you don't want to play the Death Lords early on. But when you play them on like turn 5, for instance, perhaps right here, then you can follow that up with a Light Bomb and clear the entire board. If your opponent gets, like for example, Dr. Boom off the Death Lord, that's exactly what you want.
Yeah. I always like to play the Death Lord or save the Death Lord until really late in the game against Warrior. Because sometimes the Warrior, one of the only ways they'll win is later in the game they'll like have a turn where they just set up their combo. And Death Lord, once all the removal's gone and you play Death Lord, and you know that they don't have many big creatures left in their deck, then it can sometimes be just game over. It can buy the couple turns that you need, especially in like a Fatigue War.
Yeah, unfortunately for Amaz, he leaves up a 2/1 Slime here, Goldshire Footman, essentially.
Yeah.
And that gives Dog something to steal.
Yeah.
That being said, like, it's not a very high value target. You generally want something like an Acolyte of Pain or even, oh wow, that's pretty good steal, I would say.
Yeah. Pretty fantastic, and a golden as well, because the golden thought steal.
Kind of doing a little more scouting on Amaz. Now that he knows Amaz is running those golden Emperors.
Yeah. The slime that comes out of the Sludge Belcher is basically a Goldshire Footman that didn't read the warning label on the back of the Clorox bleach container under his sink and ended up drinking it anyway. That's what it is. It turned into a green slime.
I can see that. I can see that. It reminds me of I don't know if you watched Nickelodeon as a kid.
Of course I did. You didn't have a childhood if you didn't watch Nickelodeon.
It reminds me of a Goldshire Footman that got slimed.
That got slimed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I used to love that. I had very simple pleasures as a kid. So sitting in front of a television and watching a bunch of green slime fall into a celebrity that I was very fond of was one of the best memories that I have from when I was a kid.
I think you speak the voice of our generation.
I do.
TJ.
Only 90s kids would get it. Literally. I always want to say that when it actually means something.
Now, Dog was actually considering more Death Lords, putting more Death Swords onto the table, and why not? If your opponent can't deal with one, he probably can't deal with the other. Okay, so this is actually a key card in this matchup, Anti-Healbot.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think so, but one of the only ways Warrior wins is if they Alexstrasza and then burst you down, and you can't really keep, like if you just use a heal or your hero power, it's not enough sometimes. The Warrior, if they have a board, they can just deal way too much damage with the ground combo, plus like a weapon that they can possibly have in hand.
Yeah, it's especially good now with a lot of combo decks being popular. Sometimes people don't really, well, maybe they're expecting now, but in the past people haven't really expected Anti-Healbot to be in Priest. So against decks like Freeze Mage, or like Control Warrior, or even like Oil Rogue, sometimes the Anti-Healbot can make it, can put you out of range of a combo that you'd otherwise die to.
Yeah,
like you said, hero power sometimes isn't enough.
I find it somewhat amusing that the best healing card that Priest can get is Anti-Healbot, and not like Holy Fire, for instance.
It's like a card that everybody can get is also great for Priest.
Ooh. I'm actually not too sure how good that is for either player. I guess it's all right. Like, Dog can't deal with it too efficiently. Right? He can't deal with it too efficiently because Light Bomb isn't that good, so why not just put more stuff on the board? Harrison Jones is definitely a great play here. Harrison Jones is also a card that's not found in all Control Priests or all Light Bomb Priests, and usually I feel like people cut a Giblin Stalker from the original list in order to fit a Goblin, to fit Harrison Jones in.
Yeah, yeah. He just...
Oh, that's not the card that's cut. My second guess is perhaps he cut a Shrink Master or a Shadow Madness.
Yeah, that could be a possibility. Probably Shrinkmeister. If you're putting in a 2-mana creature, I think Shadow Madness is just so good against Zoo that right now you can't really afford to cut it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But we'll have to see. We'll see once we get through this. Once we get through this deck, because I'm sure we're going to get through a lot of this deck during this match.
So.
Is this a turn to play Emperor Thorson? Do you feel confident enough to play it, even though you know that it's going to get removed next turn, pretty much 100%?
This is actually looking really bad for Amaz right now. None of his plays look that good to me at this moment. Yeah. Even playing like Dr. Boom on the board, it's not enough of a threat because Dog's board is so strong, and he has the card advantage. Basically anything that Amaz plays right now can be dealt with very easily, especially the Emperor. So I guess he's just setting up for later turns, later plays, perhaps some kind of combo with Brawl. And right now, because Brawl is 4 mana, perhaps something like a Sylvanas plus Brawl can get Amaz back into the game.
Yeah. That's one of the only things. I mean, Brawl isn't too bad with the Death Lord, just because you know that you're going to be left with a creature. At least one at the end of the turn.
One poor creature.
One poor creature. And sometimes you may have wanted that creature not to come out.
This is actually really funny, the dynamic of golden cards versus non-golden cards here. Yeah. Because Amaz, with this setup, he can easily track what Dog stole from him, because literally the only 2 cards that are golden in Dog's hand are the cards that he stole from Amaz.
Yeah, that's true. Which is weird. Dog's usually a player who...
that hurts.
That's gross.
So he stole 2 Sylvanases, an Emperor, and a Harrison Jones. He's gonna have 3 Sylvanas in his deck.
Yeah, that's crazy.
This is like one of the best thought steals like you could ever. Like, this is even better than stealing Ragnaros or Alexstrasza.
And the Harrison Jones as well.
Yeah.
Like he's already used Harrison Jones to get rid of one weapon. He's gonna see another Harrison Jones. He's gonna be like, what the heck is this? Since when can Priest run 2 copies of a card? But like you said, he'll know exactly which ones he stole. I mean, if you're really paying attention, you can look to see where the thought-stolen cards go in the hand. But a lot of players will say that that's what you have to do, but then they'll forget about where those cards ended up being and never do it anyway.
All right, this is a kind of a tech card for Amaz VC that he just drew, Lotheb, and that's actually in pretty much none of the modern Control Warrior lists. But I feel like Amaz put it in this deck specifically to counter Rogue and specifically to counter Freeze Mage.
Okay.
two decks that he probably knows that Amaz, or he knows that Dog will run. Unfortunately, he didn't get to draw it against the Rogue game, so let's see where this brawl goes. Oh, the worst one. And Harrison Jones is brought out. Okay, so it doesn't matter too much because your opponent probably doesn't have a weapon at this point after using 2 Thought Steals.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Not too bad.
I do think at this point, even though the Emperor is really good here, that perhaps Dog wants to play slightly more defensively. You could also put down 2 Sylvanas. I mean, it's not a good play.
Yeah.
But it's a possible play. That's like,
yeah.
Hey, what's up, guys? I have 2 Sylvanas that I stole from you.
Yeah, you might not want to give away that hand too early, though. But now that Brawl is gone, it's gonna be really tough. I like the Sludge Belcher play because there is a slight risk, I suppose. Because if you played like Alex Straza that turn and then just went face, it would be risky, but he could put him at 5 and then threaten combo and force the priest into a defensive positioning.
Yeah, usually like the only plays I'd be too worried about in Dog's position is like an 8-mana Alex Straza, plus maybe a Fireworks to follow that up.
You could put him at 2 health if he did that.
Even then, though, Dog has the anti-heal bot to heal himself back up, and he doesn't have another taunt though, so maybe then Dog would be in some kind of trouble.
Yeah.
This is kind of exactly what Dog hoped for though. Amaz is like he's had no really good board clears in the last few turns. He used an Execute early on and a Shield Slam early on, and unfortunately for him, he hasn't drawn into his second Execute or second Shield Slam.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen removal. And this is so awkward because if you're the one playing a Sylvanas onto a board that already has your opponent's Sylvanas onto it, it's basically giving them the ability to dictate where all that damage goes. And it gives them the ability to choose kind of what they get to steal. Or choose where that damage is actually going to go, and it can make it really awkward for you.
Yeah, just loading up the board here.
Basically a stall tactic. He's going to try and...
The thing with stalling is that what is Amaz even stalling for? He's used his 1 Brawl. I mean, we don't know that he might run 2, but...
It's possible.
Probably not. I would say after we see that Lothar, that's usually a tech card. I don't think he's running too many tech cards in Control Warrior.
Especially 5 drops. Because he has the Harrison Jones as well, so I don't think he could ever fit 2 Brawls into this deck. It could be good because it's relatively strong against Zoo, really strong against Grim Patron Warrior. But I think Control Warrior has a decent matchup against that as it is.
Even though Dog is in a dominating position at this point, this turn is actually really hard.
Yeah.
The reason being is that Dog actually doesn't have a great way to clear this board, except for Light Bomb, which also clears his own board. Also, he might be vulnerable to something like Alex Straza on the next turn if he doesn't clear this board fully. So I actually wouldn't even be surprised if he stole the slime at this point. Yeah, he did. Yeah. So this is like the play that doesn't give him a lot of value, but it gives him more safety.
He's running out of time, though. He's going to want to try and steal one of these high-health creatures. Lothar preferably, but gets the Acolyte of Pain. That's not too bad either. He's okay on cards, but he would have wanted to steal the Lothar.
Oh, what a misplay by Dog. Placing the Pilot Shredder on the right.
Yeah. If you get a Flame Tongue Totem out of that thing or a Dire Wolf, he's going to be sad.
So, unfortunately, a bit too late. Shield Slam is something he might have wanted perhaps like 4 turns ago when the Death Lord was on the field. But right now, there's just too many threats to clear. After 1 Brawl is gone, Dog has just so much safety in order to do whatever he wants.
Yeah. And Dr. Boom, he's going to put his faith in the Boom bots here and try and see if these little guys can clear up what's remaining. What's remaining of this board.
Holy Nova seems like a good one.
It does.
Unfortunately, no villain's chosen in his hand as well, so that Dog will be able to do 3 damage with that.
Yeah. Well, it looks like judging by he's going face, he's going to Light Bomb.
Yeah, Light Bomb is also a good choice here.
Yeah.
Draw a card, clear the field. Light Bomb, actually one of the only cards in the game that goes that trades well or trades evenly with Dr. Boom, I would say.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, sometimes it can trade you. Well, that's true, because the boom bots are always... The Light Bomb's going to do as much damage as the boom bots would do. But now he just loads up the board again, and Amaz is actually running out of cards. And Unstable Ghoul is in the way, comes out from the Paladin Treader, so... Even if he did have an opportunity to maybe go for a just completely yellow play here, it just wouldn't even matter.
Yeah, Sylvanas here isn't even very good.
Yeah, what does he do?
Even if Amaz somehow were able to activate a Sylvanas, what's he going to steal, right?
And then you always run the risk if you play a Sylvanas as your only creature on the board and your opponent has a Sylvanas, what if they just have a Shadow or Death? And they just Shadow or Death their own Sylvanas and steal yours, and then it's basically like you never played in the first place.
Dog's drawn 2/3 of his deck at least at this point.
Yeah.
Just based off of all the off of all the drawing cards like Northshire Cleric, that you probably know that he has something.
Yeah. And if he throws Grom in here and just throws it in the Unstable Ghoul, that's just going to get stolen as well and turn around and do a bunch of damage.
Yeah, Grom definitely not an option. Execute not an option here. So it's either Sylvanas or bust at this point.
Yeah. Oh, it's just so risky. Any play that he makes right now is just terrible. Armor pass. Okay, yeah, he has to.
All right, Sylvanas and not bust, I would say.
Yeah. I think it's Sylvanas and bust, because
Look at the top decks.
Oh, wow.
Dog is like, oh, thanks for the Sylvanas.
Yeah.
I traded, you traded a Sylvanas for my Shadow or Death. I think that's a trade that Dog will take any day of the week.
And good sequencing as well, even though it's pretty obvious. Make sure he gets the attack in with his own Sylvanas first. Okay. I've seen a lot of players make that mistake.
Usually that's a card that might get you back into the game, but with the Sylvanas also on the field, and
or
Sylvanas
perhaps
number 3. That's actually really funny, because Dog's only golden card that we've seen so far is a Sylvanas.
Yeah, is his own Sylvanas, because he thought stole 2 of his opponent's golden Sylvanases.
Well, this is actually pretty funny, because Dog can steal this Ysera pretty easily because of the Unstable Ghoul.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, thanks for the Sylvanas, I guess.
Yeah. Usually you're okay with playing Ysera into Sylvanas just because priests don't usually have ways to damage their own creatures.
But yeah,
this time he did.
So that's Sylvanas number 3. Like keeping count.
Priests are overpowered. They have 32 cards in their deck.
I think right now, okay, I might have even considered saving the Awakens, but no. Saving the Awakens would probably mean that
he was
Amaz would have died in like the next turn, pretty much.
Yeah, because he had, what was that, 7 damage staring at him on board. If he had Ysera Awakened the next turn, he would have been sitting at 4. Or I guess 6 because he would have armored up, but still just really rough. And he gets an Emerald Drake, which is just another big threat that he can put out.
Interesting that pretty much Dog hasn't been using the powered shields, and I think that's pretty fair because we know that Amaz, he only has one. Actually, he's used both shield slams and both executes. No, he's 1 shield slam left, and that probably won't matter too much. Also, Dog might be worried about fatigue, maybe not, but he has all the cards that he needs at this point.
Yeah, Shield Slam drawn at this point without an activator, because if you remember back, Deathlord actually took out the Shield Maiden. And of course, Battlecry doesn't come into effect, so... I mean, he's trying to think, how can I win from this position? And it seems like the only way is to, like, equip Despite. No, even then you wouldn't. I was going to say, equip Despite, hope you draw Alex draws the next turn, and then the following turn, Despite into Grom, into Cruel Taskmaster, and hope that he says, you know what, I don't feel like healing this turn. Even though you just played Alexstrasza, I'm just going to deal with your Alexstrasza and not heal it. So it's looking grim. And of course, he doesn't have a way to remove the Emerald Drake this turn, except using Grom Cruel Taskmaster and then hitting it into the Emerald Drake. So rough.
So pretty much Amaz goes with the play that he might have a chance at winning with, but probably not. Well,
Yeah.
almost certainly not. And yeah, Harrison Jones comes down. Even Mind Control is drawn.
Second Harrison Jones. Both of his death bites have been Harrison Jones.
That's great.
That's fantastic.
Well, the best thing about him for Amaz is like he can kind of chalk this up to a loss because of kind of the RNG in this game. 2 Harrison Jones and 3 Sylvanas. Yeah, of course you're going to beat Warrior that way, right?
Yeah. Well, he gets at least something that he needs off the top here. The BGH. BGHing the Emerald Drake there, but he's still in dire straits. And it's a little bit off.
Yep.
Holy Nova could put him at 1.
A little bit off.
Yeah. Holy Nova's going to be the play here, though, just so he can clear off this BGH, put him at 1.
You might even consider Power Word shielding here to draw into Lun's Chosen, but yeah, this is fine as well, of course.
Yeah. Oh, man. Looking for the Alexstrasza, and even then it's going to be tough. Well, Shield Minion, second Shield Minion is going to keep him alive for a little bit. But still, he does have 1 Shield Slam left in the deck.
Yep, and unfortunately, there's Shadow Madness. So Shadow Madness was not cut. Okay. So it's probably the
Shrinkmeister, yeah. Yes. We have not seen Shrinkmeister. Been through quite a bit of his deck as well.
This priest is funny. You can't actually ever kill your opponent. Like kind of the classic priest, it sometimes has a Cockney Soul Priest to deal 2 extra damage of burst. It sometimes has Holy Nova.
Yeah.
But yeah, this priest, it pretty much bursts you for 2 mana at 2 damage at most.
It's like all reactive cards. Everything, nearly everything is some type of reactive play.
Well, that's going to be it. Mind Control will do it.
Yeah, killing him with his own Grom.
Wait, there's Shrinkmeister. Huh.
What does he cut?
That's interesting. So he has a 31 card deck.
Yeah.
Got to get the admins on this, right?
Yeah. All right, so Dog is going to take a 2-0 by the... Call me TJ. Well played, sir.
All right.
Well played.
From the opening hands, pretty good from Amaz. Now, in that matchup where Amaz played Ignite and Amaz lost with Control of Warrior versus Freeze Mage, not only did Ignite have to draw well, but Amaz actually didn't draw any cards that made him draw additional cards, so like no Acolyte of Pain. He also lost a 1-in-5 Brawl. So that's like the kind of things that need to happen here in order for Dog to win, basically.
Yeah.
2 Armor Smiths.
Right there, you can already tell that the game is pretty much over. So you can't just throw the Armor Smiths out there all willy-nilly. A lot of times you want to wait until you can... Well, I guess he throws the Armor Smith out there all willy-nilly.
Well, no, I think in this scenario you want to do that because you have no other way to actually contest Mad Scientists or like Acolytes of Pain.
Yeah.
So like you don't have any weapons, so I think that was a very good play.
Yeah, you want to gain as much armor from these Armor Smiths as possible. So a lot of times you'll see players, if they do have ways to deal with that early, like if they do have like Fire War Axe or something like that, they'll wait until they can get a board with 3 or 4 creatures and then play Armor Smith later in the game. So that way every turn they're gaining more and more armor. And it just makes turns so awkward for the Freeze Mage if you have an Armor Smith on the board. Because it's so hard for them to burst it down in a single turn without giving you ridiculous amounts of armor. Like if they Blizzard while you have an Armor Smith on the board to try and stop damage, they're stalling doing damage to themselves, but what they're doing is making the warrior gain absurd amounts of health, and a lot of times it can just mean they lose.
Dog's hand is actually looking really good at this point. He has Acolyte, and he also has the key card in this matchup, Emperor Thorazin. Not only that, but he has Emperor with 2 Ice Lances in his hand, and that's actually really key, because essentially he'll be able to make these Ice Lances free, and thus when Archmage Antonidas is drawn, he's going to get possibly 2 additional fireballs, so 12 extra damage to the warrior's face.
Yeah, you want as many cheap spells reduced with the Thorazin for, like you said, the Archmage Antonidas, because that is one of the only ways you win. Because the warrior will gain so much health over the course of the game that you just won't have enough damage. Freeze mages usually have a finite amount of damage, with the only exception being them drawing more fireballs from the Archmage Antonidas. So all the warrior has to do is say, I'm going to armor up every turn, try and gain as much health as possible, and eventually the mage is just going to run out of damage, and I'm just going to out-heal them.
Now, I really like this play, throwing out the Blood Mage Salos just onto the field, and that's because Dog, he sees that he has the Emperor in his hand, so he wants to get as many cards in his hand as possible to reduce with the Emperor. And Blood Mage isn't really a card that you want to reduce in in mana cost as much as, say, perhaps another Frostbolt or an Archmage Antonidas. He just really wants those key cards, those spells essentially, to combo with Archmage because he knows that is probably his only win condition at this point.
Yeah. And it can sometimes feel like when you're the control warrior in this matchup that the pressure is on. Because you're the overwhelming favorite. You know that you'll never be able to live it down if you lose to a freeze mage. You know that your friends are just going to like log in Skype and just say, hey man, you remember that time that you lost to freeze mage as control warrior? And it happened like 5 minutes ago? One of those kind of friends. And since Amaz is in the Archon house, there's actually, what, 6 of those friends that can actually come into his room, pat him on the shoulder, and say, hey, Amaz, remember that time you lost to Freeze Mage as a control warrior?
I think all the Archon members value their jobs enough that that won't happen, though.
Then I hope Amaz never hires me to be on Team Archon. I hope I never win a major tournament, so I automatically get a seed to Team Archon. Just because I would say things like that to anybody, regardless of their status, regardless of my employment status with them.
Well, you could say to your current employee, hey, you could just tell them that you lost with Control Warrior to Freeze Mage, see how they react.
I could.
Or just, like, does your current employer play Hearthstone, perhaps? You could make fun of them for that as well.
I could. I'm all talk, no game, though, so I'm actually not going to do that. Just all words. This actually is a tough turn. He's going to have to sack the Armor Smith and Shield Send Dipper Thor's hand because you cannot let that thing live for more than one turn against Freeze Mage. That is one of the ways that you lose the game.
Yeah. Amaz had other options, such as just armoring up and shield slamming, but this is, I think he wanted to do this because he wanted to put as much pressure on the Freeze Mage as possible. Amaz knows firsthand, of course, how he can lose this matchup, and it's by just running out of cards and not putting on enough pressure, not being able to answer the opponent's threats. Also, it was turn 7 for 4 dogs, so there was definitely the possibility of Archmage Antonize into a lot of spells. If the Sylvanas was not down here at this point, there would pretty much be no answer save Big Game Hunter into Brawl.
Yeah.
And if that happened, Amaz knows, again, he knows firsthand how Brawls really favor Archmage Antonize.
Yeah. Especially with the finicky Cloak field. It's almost a guaranteed win for the Archmage Antonidas. Just tips it in his favor. But Amaz is running out of cards. He doesn't have health gain either. He doesn't have Shield Maiden, no shield block. His Armor Smiths are gone.
I think at this point, though, Amaz is feeling okay about running out of cards as opposed to other games because he has that the Ysera in his hand.
Yeah.
Now, he got one of the key cards he needs to win this matchup, Dog, that is. He got Alexstrasza, but after Alexstrasza, he basically needs that Archmage as well.
There is a possibility, actually. Yeah, actually, if you think about it, he has quite a bit of burst in his hand. There's only 4 armor. That's not a lot. If he Pyroblast next turn...
Ooh, shield block, though.
Then he could,
Shield block.
In theory, if he Pyroblasted next turn, then he could put him at 4 and have ridiculous amounts of burst. And that still might be the play. Because if he Pyroblast here, he puts him at 9. Or I guess it's going to be 11. And he still has more than 13 damage in his hand to follow it up with the next turn. It might be his only chance of winning.
Usually that Ysera's Awakens is pretty much the best dream card that you can get. But it might be a double-edged sword in this case. Amaz might come into the scenario where he is able to pop the Ice Block with Ysera Awakens, but he also like puts himself in danger of dying on the next turn with that. So a lot of skill will have to be used when the Ysera is a viable option. Oh, 2 Ysera Awakens, wow.
Oh, yeah, this is just... I mean, he can probably just go for it. The one thing he has to worry about is... if it doesn't work out, do I have any ways to win? Like, if he has Shield Maiden and another shield block, can I do it? He's calculating his damage here.
I believe he has 21 damage on the next turn if he Pyroblasts now. So in total, that's 31 damage. And that's actually going to be enough.
It is. As long as he doesn't get any armor gain. Okay, so if he Pyroblasts now, he'll put him at 16 health. Yeah,
and as we can see from Amaz's hand, 16 health is pretty much all he's going to get, 16 plus the 2 from armor up.
Yeah.
And he's not going to be able to survive anything else after.
Uh-oh.
No, twice in a row, Amaz, you lose this matchup. Uh-oh, indeed.
Uh-oh.
So right now he needs the second shield block or a shield maiden, and no. Oh,
that's good too.
Wait. Yeah, there we go.
Lotheb. This buys him another turn, but unless he draws into life gain, it's still not enough. The one thing he has to do here, he has to pop the block.
So yeah,
that is ice block, right? Because it came from that
sign. Yes, it is ice block. He can actually do it in a number of ways, either with a Sarah's Awakens or a Death Spite.
Yeah.
That means he can't armor up this turn, which puts him even more vulnerable to some kind of burn. So basically, at this point, Dog needs to draw into ice block.
Yeah.
And just turn around. And Amaz's decision making into putting Lotheb in this deck actually turned out really well here.
Ooh.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's so unfortunate. There's no way for Dog to even draw into an ice block.
He can't even stall time because there's a Death Bite. He can't freeze both. He's going to try and draw into something, but there's just nothing. He can ice land something, but
ice lands your own face, perhaps.
Not going to be enough. Can't even ice lance his own face because it wouldn't even kill himself. He can't even commit honorable Sudoku. And Amaz with the Lotheb on the top. He was actually in lots of trouble. Yes. There was about 3 hours.
Play a really good Thorzen.
Yeah.
I feel like these two decks are the decks that gain the most for Thorzen.
Have times changed.
Yeah. When Thorzen first came out, everyone was like, oh my god, this card is Dr. Boom level. I should put it in all my decks. Mm-hmm. But as people began playing around with the card, they realized, okay, maybe this is not great for every single deck, but it's certainly great for Freeze Mage, where it can reduce Ice Lances down to 0. It's certainly good for Druid. That can reduce Force of Nature and Savage Roar down to like 5 and 2 mana respectively. So just good for all the decks that are able to combo out your opponent.
Yeah, combos I think is the key word there. Because it opens up things that would not have been possible without Emperor Thor's hand. So there is Emperor Thor's hand. There's actually quite a bit of burn in his hand that he can reduce with that, but I'm sure with the Acolyte he's going to want to draw some more. The reason why Druid is one of the favorable matchups is one of the 2 classes that can gain armor with their hero power, and every point of health matters in late game against Freeze Mage. Also, they do have quite a bit of heal, and damage from hand is the biggest. They can threaten to pop the block much earlier than most classes can.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that can sometimes force the Freeze Mage on the back foot, force him to play defensively. Pop the block early, it means the Mage has to find a way to string together another block and trying to go on the offensive. And a lot of times, if they don't get early Alex draws out, they're doomed.
Okay, interesting. Electing to save the Doomsayer on this turn. I guess he thinks this board isn't too threatening. Or threatening enough, I would say. Well, just more damage to face right here. Amaz really showing it to Dog, putting him in his place.
Being a very obedient dog as well.
Yeah, putting him in the backyard.
It's a very happy dog, too. If Dog was an actual dog right now, with that face that's on that picture, he would definitely be wagging his tail.
So the story I heard from Dog of how he came up with his nickname was like, Dog's account was like, he originally, he got it from his like brother, and his brother was like Dog. Like, it was a brand new account.
His brother was his dog?
Whoa, revelations.
Whoa! Crazy. This guy's brother is crazy. He needed exactly that animal. It's a pretty good story.
I know. All my stories are great.
I love the people whose names in video games are like literally them just falling into it. Like a lot of people, they're saying, oh, I didn't know what to name, so I just looked around my room, saw the first object, and then I named myself that object.
Well, you obviously saw an Asmo Cutie.
I saw an Asmo Cutie standing in the corner of my room, and I knew right then and there that was going to be my gamer name. You are correct.
I often am. So, wow, this Emperor is pretty huge.
Yep. He gets an Ice Lance reduced. He gets a Fireball reduced as well.
Well, not only that, but the board the Emperor is facing against That actually can't deal with the Emperor very efficiently.
No, it cannot.
Especially if you do want to use the Ancient of Lore on this turn.
You always have to think for a second when you use Ancient of Lore in this matchup, though. Sometimes you want it for a heal, but a lot of times the first one's for draw and the second one's for like an emergency heal.
Oh, man. So with this play, it's probably going to be that... Oh, what a huge draw. The Innervate is actually just amazing. You can now Innervate out of hero power.
Yeah. You're not worried about taking much damage initially in this matchup. Wow, he trades anyway. Huh.
Okay, so he values his health that much, I guess.
Yeah. Well, especially with the hand that he has, I would think he'd be pretty okay with just using that Innervate pretty liberally. I mean, he might be looking for bigger plays later. Like you said, values his health right now a little bit more.
Oh, but that's going to be a game changer.
Yeah.
Ragnaros the Fire Lord.
You can't freeze a Ragnaros.
You can try.
You can try.
But its flames are just so powerful.
Yeah.
He is the Fire Lord after all.
You know, Monk, it pisses me off sometimes, you know? Ragnaros, he's made of fire. You'd think freezing him would stop his fireballs. I've been over this a lot. I've had conversations with many, many people about just how angry I am at Ragnaros.
Well, it's kind of like have you ever had chocolate molten cake?
I have.
Right? So
obviously.
Usually there's ice cream served with the chocolate molten cake, right?
There is,
But like the ice cream kind of makes the outside kind of cold, but the inside there's still lots of lava.
It's still molten
inside.
hot.
Yeah, it's still hot. And that's what I feel like freezing Ragnaros is like. You still have the frozen outside, but inside there's the gooey molten chocolate.
I feel like I've been enlightened. Nobody's ever explained it to me that way. You've cured my anger, my inner rage. You've cured it. Fantastic.
Ragnaros,
Fantastic
the Fire Lord, will come down now.
And again, it is, of course, all jokes aside, fantastic against Freeze Mage just because it's always going to deal damage.
Or is it in this scenario?
Well, it dealt damage. Just not damage that was very useful. And Ice Block pretty much has to come down here because there's so many things that are going to kill him next turn. It's turn 9, so Force of Nature Savage Roar is an option. And he also has to factor in the extra 8 damage that's going to come from Ragnaros.
Yeah, unfortunately, but the thing is, if you play Ice Block here, there's really not much you can combine it with.
Yeah.
So I can actually see possibly a different play coming down on the field right now, and kind of you have to play a little risky. You can't really play around combo, and just setting up for kind of a win.
How does he set up for a win?
There's also the possibility of Dog, he just realizes, okay, I can't win in the next 2 or 3 turns, so this Ragnaros will do too much work within that time. So I actually have to deal with this Ragnaros right here, right now. But then, again, unfortunately, he can't actually do that.
The only way he can do it is to double Fireball. Because Blizzard Ice Lance wouldn't be enough. He'd still be one off. Fireball Ping wouldn't be enough.
Blizzard Ice Lance Ping wouldn't even be enough.
Okay. Well, Archmage Tinnitus we've seen is definitely great at dodging brawls, but is it great at dodging fire?
I mean, he summons fireballs.
Yeah.
And Ragnaros' shot is kind of a fireball. So
it is a fireball. That is correct.
You could say that Ragnaros, or Archmage Antonius, is Ragnaros' father.
Yeah. Whoa.
It's not Reynad.
Whoa! Reynad is the father of Hearthstone. And Fortune is the father of Twitch chat. Well, also another thing to notice there is when he drew that Force of Nature with Wrath, he played it right off the top, which is actually pretty important because you want to make your opponent think that you top decked it, and you also want to make him think that you don't have another one. Because playing it off the top like that, of course they can see that. So just right away, drawing for one and then playing it is pretty smart. A little bit of mind games that goes into it. It is sort of a min-max thing. It may not make your opponent play any differently, but if there's any chance that it will, you might as well go for it. Every small advantage matters.
That's very true. Now, unfortunately, you know, imagine if the board was completely clear and he had an ice block up. Imagine how good Alex Straza would be on this turn.
Yep.
But unfortunately, he has to expend a Blizzard and a Fireball to deal with this board.
Yep.
So, and not only that, again, Lotheb is drawn. Lotheb, it's not in every Druid deck. I would say right now it's in probably 80 to 90% of Druid decks, but I think Amaz made a conscious decision to put Lotheb in his deck, again, to counter Rogue and to counter Freeze Mage.
Yep.
Amaz sees Dog. It's like, Dog, come over here.
He's oh, man.
Here's a toy. Here's a Chewy toy.
Still photos as like avatars for pro players in tournaments is, like, it just makes me giggle. I don't know. I'm trying to imagine what they're thinking while they're just staring deeply into whatever camera took that picture.
Well, I feel like they're actually staring deeply into my soul.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of creepy.
Amaz's is kind of creepy. Actually, both players' pictures are kind of creepy.
Yeah, I need a piece of paper to like cover it, just so I can focus a little bit more. There we go. Yeah, and this really hurts because you know that if you don't clear anything off the board and just play Ice Block, your block's getting popped next turn. Yep. And you know that if you're fireballing, yeah, that is going to be game. Exactly, with just the force of nature. And there's not too much around it. And that right there is one of the reasons why Druid is so strong, because you mentioned it earlier. What if he had an Ice Block? He could play Alexstrasza safely that turn. It just can't happen. There's just a lot of pressure that Druids can put. Series of the day. Amaz's Hunter versus, of course, that Freeze Mage from Dog. And the funny thing is, Amaz has actually won the last 2 games with a Lotheb off the top. Like, both games, Dog was... Well, in the last game, Dog wasn't really anywhere near winning. But in the first game, Dog would have literally... Well, not literally, but probably won the game, barring another big draw from Amaz. It's got to feel bad for Dog when he sees that Lotheb come down. He's just like, oh, well, the game's over, I guess.
Yeah, Dog has had some somewhat of bad luck with Freeze Mage these last couple of days. In the King Win tournament, we know that a Lorewalker Cho actually came out of a Pilot Shredder from his opponent, and Dog actually would have won the game if any other card came out of the Pilot Shredder.
Yeah. Because there's nothing you can do, because the thing that happened was he had to remove it in order to play Ice Block. Just because if he had given Ice Block to his opponent, there was no way that he would have been able to win because he had a finite amount of damage. So that just was... It's just one of those things, man. Just one of those things.
Yeah. So we indeed see that it's going to be mid-range Hunter from Amaz. So it's probably pretty good.
Yeah. Jab in the King Win for Charity event over the weekend actually brought mid-range Hunter in his semifinals. All 4 of the matches that he lost in the best of 7 was with his mid-range Hunter.
That's got to be sad, especially because mid-range Hunter is kind of Jab's deck. Yeah. And to lose with your signature deck, that's like...
That many times in one series. All 4 of his losses.
Unfortunately, that's... we did see Jab kind of... he misclicked at a certain time, and he probably could have won in those certain games.
That's true, but still. It's hard to... what do you think is... the strength of mid-range Hunter right now? Like, what decks does it do well against? It's hard to find any deck that has an overwhelming strength against.
I think it's probably, it's just a good deck overall.
Like a solid?
Yeah, just a solid deck that it doesn't really...
4 out of 10, 6 out of 10 with Rice?
Yeah, with Rice. That's important. Like, it's good against Handlock, I feel. And I think it's actually really good against Freeze Mage. And again, that's what Amaz might be targeting. The problem with Face Hunter is that you have a limited number of cards, and you sometimes just... you just run out of cards, and the Freeze Mage can deal so efficiently with like 3 1s and 2 1s. Whereas with mid-range Hunter, you have like these high-value minions like Savannah Highmane and Dr. Boom, and Freeze Mage is going to struggle so much at dealing with those. Yeah,
that's true. They put out a consistent amount of pressure that's not stopped very easily. They may not put as much like straight-up early damage as Face Hunter, but you work so hard to clear a board. Like, you work so hard to prevent damage on the board that's from Face Hunter, and then all of a sudden a turn 6 Highmane comes down, and you've exhausted some of your removal to try and stall some of the damage out. Yeah. And there it comes.
The almighty roar of the lion.
Scar. Mufasa. I am your father. I think that's the wrong movie.
well, Mufasa was someone's father, right? So, no, it was the right movie. You've got it wrong.
Was he someone's father?
He's Simba's father.
Oh, yeah, Mufasa was Simba's father. Scar wasn't. Was Scar anybody's father?
Well, he could have been Simba's father. We don't know. Maybe maybe Simba's mother had an affair in that movie.
Yeah, Lion King scared the crap out of me when I was young.
I mean,
just as an aside,
the kid's father died. Like, they showed death on screen. I guess that must have been scary as a kid.
Yeah, it took me a while to like understand what was happening, like the importance of it.
Yeah.
But we know that this Savannah High main is the father, but he's the father of. Oh no, I guess.
No, the hyenas. He's not. Okay, that's not how it works, man.
No, it is.
That's not how the birds and the bees work. Animals, they have to be of the same species to reproduce with one another.
Yeah. I think they should have changed the name of scavenging hyena to like the regular hyena, like just hyena, and the hyenas that come out of Savannah High main.
And wow,
to scavenging hyenas.
Even Rag. So this is definitely a deck
Whoa.
that's amazing against against Freeze Mage.
We know that Amaz leaned towards Rag in a lot of his decks, but putting it in mid-range hunter is actually something I've seen quite often. It's not as weird of a card as it may seem.
Yes, definitely. It's just okay. So the quote from Life Coach that I heard at DreamHack was, "You pretty much want to put Rag in every deck that really wants to go face, because even if Rag misses, quote unquote, misses on a minion, and it hits face, that means like, hey, wow, you did 8 more damage. Good job, Rag."
Yeah. It's a pretty good card. It's considered one of the best legendaries for a very long time.
I would say in this meta right now, it's still like. Probably overall, if I had to make a crafting guide, I would say Dr. Boom, Sylvanas, and then probably Rag, because it fits in so many decks.
I would agree.
And it's really good against like decks like Freeze Mage, for example.
I would definitely agree.
So yeah, pretty much giving your opponent lethal if you didn't Ice Lance that.
Yeah, he's running out of cards here. Every turn he's just sort of having to play the stall tactic.
Well,
I don't think
turn 8 looks like Rag.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other options, but since you can't lethal your opponent anyway right now, you might as well throw down Rag just to get it going, you know?
Yeah, there's a way you can put out like more damage this turn consistently. Like, there's a chance that Rag will hit the Doomsayer. There's opportunities for him to just straight up do more damage, but really against Freeze Mage, if you can play Rag on a turn where you have board control, then there really doesn't seem like any other option.
Go Rag.
Those Doomsayers have just been taking Rag hits all day.
Yeah, they're the boss. So,
is there any way out here? I just don't think there is. He's got Block Up. He's got Mad Scientist to maybe summon an Ice Barrier here. But the rest of his spells are burned. He doesn't have any other stall tools. No Alexstrasza either. It just seems like it's looking really grim.
Even grimmer than Grim Patron himself.
Grim Patron.
Yeah. You know, like I've told you this before, but when I first heard that, that card, I pronounced it Grim Patron instead of Grim Patron, because let's face it, in the past like however many years of my life, I've heard that the Patron used more than Patron.
Now we know that Monk is a partier. He goes to parties and he sips on Patron. That's why he knew.
Closet alcoholic. You'll see me at the next AA meeting.
That's a little more of a grimmer term. Oh. Partier has a more positive connotation to it, but it looks like Dog is he's gonna rope out. It doesn't look like he's playing much, but he's gonna try and figure out the best way that he can survive here. He can take out Rag with Frostbolt, Ice Lance.
Yeah, he can.
And a ping.
He can take out the 2 biggest threats, but now he's lost his burn. Not only that, like he doesn't have any card draw left in his hand.
He can literally get his block pop this turn, ice block the next turn, and he still won't have much. I guess Mad Scientist will pull an Ice Barrier, which could give him a little bit of extra time to stall.
I kind of like just playing out your curve as much as possible. Getting the high main on the field, just a bigger threat, and you don't even really need to fit in hero powers at this point. You have so many high quality cards, and I feel like the game's going to end in the next 2 or 3 turns anyway. So you can just equip the Eagle Horn Bow, go for face, why not? You are a Hunter player as well. Okay, Glaive Zuka.
You can put him at... Oh, wow. He gets the extra attack from the Glaive Zuka and goes ahead and equips the Eagle Horn Bow.
Oh, that's really good, actually.
Pops the block, yeah.
So he basically, he needed 1 more damage to pop the block, and this allowed him to. It's kind of like equipping a Death Smite,
yeah,
and then using a Fire War Axe afterwards.
Death Rattle.
Exactly.
Archmage Antonidas is going to draw him some burn, but it is going to be quite late for that. No blocks left. This is the second block that is available. I just don't see any way off for Dog here. If he draws an Alexstrasza next turn, potentially, but there's just going to be so much power on the board. He's most likely going to be able to do 15 damage.
Yep, no way.
15 damage is going to be nearly sitting on the board just by itself.
So the good old Fireball, your old mad scientist, the force in play, of course, and then into Kill Yourself, because really disappointing for Dog here. He got reverse swept because Amaz, he really did his research. He really knew Dog's tendencies, and he hard countered that Freeze Mage 3-0.